just wanted to pull, shout those people out. You can find them in our Discord. They're all super talented and they've been working super hard on this stuff. I thought I'd start just kind of the best way to understand V3 is like if you think about it in relation to where we came from. So like V2, if you've used it, the whole idea there is it's kind of geared towards DAO participants, right, and summoners and stuff. It's a one-stop shop UI for launching and using DAOs. Super monolithic. It's been around for a couple of years, so it kind of is reflective of that big monolithic UI or monolithic V2 contract. The V2 contract kind of does it all. We'll look a little more at that in a second, but so yeah, we've learned a lot over these last 2 years. We had pieces of our code base that were super centralized. We have a huge code base that's really hard to work with and onboard new developers into. But the whole idea is this one app, and we built it. DAOhaus built it, right? And you go to use that to use Moloch V2. Moloch V3, we've really shifted into our target audience is builders. Really, it's not so much DAO participants. It's the builders. So we've realized as the V3 contract has got more modular and much more complex and has opened up all sorts of new use cases, we need to build tools that allow DAOs to quickly prototype, iterate, and build the specific solutions they need for their DAOs. We can no longer be like the one place that builds the one tool that your DAO needs. That's just not a reality anymore. So instead of just one app built by us, V3 is really about hopefully hundreds of apps built by us and you. So that's where we're headed. This is just a quick illustration. I mean, this is V2, right? Did it switch over to my browser now? You can see this?
Affirmative.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the V2 app, you have a hub, you have an explore section, you have summon sections. Inside the DAO, you've got all your different vaults, all your members, your hundreds of proposals you can create, your boosts, which is all these little plugins that are trying to solve every solution a DAO ever needs. And this is all in one big code base. V3, as you're going to see, it's more hey, here's 15 NPM packages. Here's the contracts we've deployed, the factories that we have for you. Here's the graphs that we've set up. Our UIs that we've built as demos for what you can build are much simpler, right? They're going to be basic DAO admin tools for making proposals. Hey, look, your safes are now in Gnosis safe. Your member lists, real just basic stuff to get going on this, to see all the things that are happening in your DAO. But the idea is all the specific little use cases can get built by the DAOs themselves as they understand them. So let's jump kind of deeper into the stack. We'll go through each little section. I think the contracts, we'll get a lot deeper into that tomorrow. I think Deacon's doing a session. But the thing to understand here is it's not just one big Moloch contract. Right now, there's a Moloch contract. There's shares and loot contracts that are ERC20s. There are the treasuries all in a safe. It kind of helps a little to understand where Moloch came from and to understand where we're at with V3 now is, the Moloch V1 contract was super simple. There was two types of proposals, one token. We were able to build an app that just did all of that, right? Because there wasn't much you could do. V2 started to open up the possibilities with adding multiple tokens. We started adding minion contracts that allowed DAOs to interact with contracts outside of the, in other just arbitrary contracts. That it added extra vaults, but it was still sort of all in this one or two contracts, right? So the V2 ballooned trying to manage all of these different use cases. And it got to kind of the tipping point. And as the V3 ball contracts came out, the ball contract split into multiple different things. Governance is all in that base contract, but safes, all treasury actions in safes now. all membership is handled with ERC20s. That arbitrary contract execution is like right out of the box as part of the base contract. And then we've introduced other like super flexible things like these admin features. So there's these shaman contracts that you can add that have special superpowers in the DAO, like, you know, minting or shares and loot or changing governance settings. So this just exploded all the different possible use cases into even more things. And it really meant that our stack just had to, we couldn't have one app that did anything anymore. So you move up from contracts, you get into subgraphs. We built a pretty simple subgraph. It's going to have all your typical DAO like entities you'd think of, a DAO, proposals, votes on those, members, our friend Rage Quit, shamans that you'll learn more about tomorrow, vaults. So we've got this deployed to all the networks we're on right now. Not much else interesting there, except this. I just wanted to talk about, we talked a bit about our old app had these centralized pieces. Most of that was databases and caching techniques that we used to make our UI work a little better and allow DAOs to have metadata and stuff. We now use a poster contract, which is a super simple contract with one function that allows you to post a string just that emits in an event, and then through a subgraph you can index that in different ways to store data. So now we've got what we call a DAO database here that related to your DAO you can see. Oops. You can, my bad. We can just have arbitrary record entities that store data, like in this case DAO metadata, the name of the DAO. So we've moved away from any centralization at all in this by using kind of subgraphs and poster contracts. That's kind of the main story on the subgraphs. But the biggest, most important thing here is our toolbox. So I wanted to get into that in a bit more detail. Here's a bit of a snapshot of our stack. It's really a series of NPM packages. Starting lower level with utilities packages. You'll probably never install these on their own, but they're just the building blocks of a lot of our other stuff. You've got your data access libraries. You've got UI libraries, which is React components for just typical app building. And then you've got much more complex feature libraries to aid in rapid application development. So quickly add a connect feature in, quickly add things that'll build forms and transactions for you. Another kind of look at this is our Mono's an NX mono repo and at the moment, and here's kind of the dependency tree. So you've got lower level utilities, UI features built on top of that, data libraries with more complex data things up on top of that. I'll jump a bit into each of these little sections. So I'm not going to talk much more about utilities, but the data read and writes, you've got a Moloch V2 data library, which wraps our subgraphs and provides super simple functions for finding DAO or list proposals, list members, etc. So you can, quickly just make simple little API calls. We've got contract utilities that wrap, our various contracts, our summoner contract and our ball contract, and you can create those and then, simply interact with those in React or in JavaScript or Node or whatever. You can create proposals, sponsor proposals, summon DAOs, all of that stuff. Up from there on the React side, we have what we're calling the Moloch V2 context. This is a pretty simple context that you can wrap your React applications in. It's going to fetch all your DAO proposal member data related to the DAO you're loading up, and then provide you a bunch of hooks that you can use throughout your components. This is one like use proposals, and it gives you your proposals. It gives you the paging information. It gives you functions to load a next page, filter proposals, sort proposals, all of this kind of stuff. So it's going to help build DAO specific apps much quicker. Up from there, this is where we start to get a little more interesting. We have a UI library. Here's this storybook.daohaus.fun. If you want to check it out, you'll see we've kind of built up all the basic stuff you need for different just UI elements. And this could be used for anything really, right? It's not just DAO specific. Got your buttons, your big button and your little button. You got cards, checkboxes, all the different inputs you need for forms. Up from, these are just, atoms and stuff that we have. Up from there, we've got molecules, different things, address displays, all sorts of just building blocks that'll help build UI really quickly. So this will be great as we get into some of our demos later in the week. We'll be interacting with this stuff directly and building apps out of it in like 2 hours. Up from that, we start to get into the feature library. So we're able to take like these data libraries, these utility libraries, these UI libraries, and then start to package up like right out of the box functionality. You're really used to like connect features, right? Like we've got this one that's super simple to drop into your app. It's called DAOhaus Connect. It'll allow you to, indicate which network you want your DAO on. It'll disconnect, connect. It's right now wrapping Wallet Connect and Web3 Modal. It comes with a nav out of the box if you need it. So it's going to be super powerful. We'll see more of that. But you drop it in your app with like 3 lines, and then it comes with a bunch of hooks too, like you'd expect for getting address or connecting wallet or whatever you'd need to do. Where it really gets more exciting is our form builder and TX builder. So we talked a bit about like Moloch V2 out of the box comes with this arbitrary contract execution. So this is like how DAOs interact with the world, right? Like they make a proposal, and that proposal has action data to execute functions on other contracts. And so if that proposal passes, they can go execute that. Well, so when you're building DAO apps, then what do you need? You need lots of proposal forms. You need ways to build these forms so that we can like tailor what those contract interactions will be and be confident in what they might be. So we've got these kind of code Lego solutions that kind of allow you to, with low code, build all sorts of proposal forms and interact with those contracts and make transactions. So I'll just give you a quick view, but Jordan will be building these live. But here's a form that does that. This has a title, description, a link. If you want to see like what this looks like in code, you can see my editor.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is what it is. It's like JSON, right? It's like the signal form. The form has a title, subtitle, description. It has a transaction with it. It has fields. These fields are more different Legos. This one has a title, description, a link. If I wanted to add a new field in, I could do that. Oops, where am I running locally somewhere? Maybe not bad. I just added that tags field here, I can take it away. So, and again, then, yeah, like I'm giving it all these fields I want. I can build new fields on the fly. If fields look like this. They're just more JSON. Each one has a transaction that it builds. In this case, it's building a multi-call TX for a proposal, which has these different fields, and it's pulling this data from the form or from static JSON or from different contracts. And so you'll see here, like this one is building up this proposal with these details, and these are the actions it's going to do. It's going to create a post to the poster contract. And when it executes, this is the transaction that it'll build. So Jordan will get much deeper into this, but it really allows us to like build these proposal forms out and these DAO apps out super quickly. So I'm going through really fast, but that's sort of the core of our toolbox. On top of that, we've got a couple of apps we've built that really we kind of see as tools or demos of what these tools can do. Yesterday, Travis showed off the admin and the summon apps. We also have a safe summon app. So inside the Gnosis safe UI, you can summon stuff. But what we've done is like we built these apps as a way to build out our tooling, right? So we build our tooling in a way that made it super simple for us to just put these apps together. They also give you a place as you're building apps to go in and see, okay, this is what's happening in this DAO that I'm building an app for. It gives you like the AWS console in a way of I'm building an app that just does this one little thing for the DAO. Maybe it makes this one kind of proposal. This admin tool gives you a place to go see, okay, this is what the proposal looks like in the DAO. This is how people are voting on it or whatever. This is where we're headed, right? And this is what you'll see the rest of the week. We've built all of this so that we can just rapidly develop applications, and in specifically DAO applications. So George's going to be introducing us to RadDad as we move into the week. But that's the whole point. And I think there'll be tons of opportunity to contribute as we move through. But if you are interested, we're on v0.10 of these packages. So they're open source. They're ready for feedback. You can go to NPM and search at DAOhaus and see all this stuff and start using it. We're excited next week to get into the hackathon. You'll see us building a bunch of stuff next week. I hope you join us and try this stuff out. And there's all sorts of paths to these kinds of things that we're going to build. And I think what you'll see more of tomorrow is learning about shamans and how we can develop shamans, and then how we can build more custom apps. So building out those ACE proposals like we just looked at with Legos, or building out super specific app use cases. You remember our V3 DAOs had these boost sections, right? Like these are all just all sorts of use cases that we could do in V2 that we don't have now in V3. So Discord notifications are by far our most popular boost. We now have tools to build new ones of those, but we don't have that out of the box right away. So there's all sorts of like these sorts of things that people could start building, potentially monetizing, or just building one off for their DAO. There's all sorts of different like paths to start to getting into like contributing and building for us. Resources, our Discord, obviously, the summon and admin apps. You can go to our GitHub and see our monorepo. This is where all of our stuff lives. We've got the libs folder is all these different packages. You'll start to see more and more issues come out there if people want to contribute. NPM I talked about, and then our toolbox at DAOhaus.fun is our first set of docs. It might be a bit out of date as we've quickly been iterating a lot of this stuff over the last few weeks. But look there. We'll be improving that and making that more tailored to where we're at. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you burned through it. Good job. I think it's interesting some of the things that you mentioned. That like one thing was like just building an app that makes proposals, right? So when we built this app, when we built our kind of demo apps, it's like we wanted to be able to make any kind of proposal. We have a proposal builder to do multi-calls. We have Wallet Connect kind of stuff. We have a couple like out of the box, like minting shares and things like that kind of proposals. But I think there's a big design space there just, to build some custom proposal for a DAO. And maybe, it could lead itself to its own kind of UX or like an app in its own right. Like maybe it's an app that finds grants and DAOs and can push out proposals to a bunch of them, or maybe there's a lot of kind of, or maybe like uses a certain template to create something very specific. The other, you mentioned how Discord notifications is really popular. That was one of the things that we had the centralized server, but now we have these kind of data SDKs that are using the graph on their decentralized service. And so anyone could use our data libraries to build a notification system. And for notification systems, the more the better. It could be an app in its own self that could be monetized. You could there's a lot of things here. One design space I really like is onboarding. Like some of the new DAO tools that have been really successful have focused primarily on onboarding. And so what does that mean? Like nouns. They have an interesting mechanic of an auction that happens every day, and that onboards people into the DAO. They focus on that, and that they're able to build an experience that is cohesive and friendly and fun and playful by focusing on onboarding. The DAO interface is very simple for nouns. It's just like make a proposal or vote. But the main thing is that for front page and onboarding, you can do onboarding into DAOs now with shamans in all types of ways. The old school way was, make a tribute or a proposal to the DAO votes on it. Very kind of slow, cumbersome process. In some use cases that's important, and others maybe not so much. You could have onboarding that is like on an auction or a bonding curve or an NFT drop or like a drip. You could do a lot of different interesting fun things. There's delegation now. You could focus on an app that really highlights delegates and maybe allows bribery or something. You could do
what's exciting is like we've learned over the last couple of years is we were like training people how to onboard into DAOs, and the people that were using the DAO interfaces were like the DAO admins, and they had like learned what a DAO is and how to onboard people. Now, if we can build these things out that you're talking about, like you're onboarding into a DAO doing something else, right? Or something that you didn't even know you're onboarding into a DAO. And so like the UX possibilities kind of become endless and really cool.
right. Discord bots. You could have all your voting happening in a Discord bot, or some kind of CollabLand integration or something that the contracts have meta transactions enabled. So there's some social apps that are looking at like kind of the Web 2.5 version, but really Web 3, it's just using a trusted forwarder and meta transactions. So, I mean, there's just really so many potentials in the DAO space. That's just one of the things while we were building V2, is just like we have so many ideas and so many like cool things that could happen, but we're always building the lowest common denominator because we want everyone to be able to use it. And in reality, every DAO, every community is different, and they need their own customizations. A DAO needs to have diversity in its clients. It needs to have multiple ways to access it, and no like single choke points. It needs to have new interesting use cases, an app. I mean, a DAO doesn't necessarily just need to be a community. New DApps can build in like DAO mechanics from the start and have an easy interface. So I'm blabbing on now, but I think you guys get the point.
And so we've tried to build these tools so that you can prototype these ideas out. So like a DAO has a little problem, in a week you can build some little solution out for it and see if it works. You know what? If it works for you, I bet you that's going to work for 10, 15 other DAOs, and there's going to be opportunities to maybe even sell that stuff to other DAOs or iterate on that or make that available for other people. So I think it's really exciting where we're headed.
Any questions for Sam while we got him up here?
Yeah, I had some questions. So like, I'm like out of breath over here because this is like, so, I recall when web components were going to be the thing, and then they were going to be the thing again, and then they weren't. And it seemed like that the issue was that the front end is decoupled from the back end, and unless you have that kind of package all in one little module, you don't get the super easy Lego piece type composition that you want. And now with Web3, we effectively have the back end, the API publicly available to everyone. So do you guys feel like that your approach here is kind of like, feels like the holy grail of what we wanted for so long as far as the web component vision,
Well, holy grail is a little scary for me to say, but yeah, I mean, that's
it's Moloch, the unholy grail.
I love that. That's a great meme. But I mean, that's the vision, right? That's where we realized we needed to head for, to match kind of that back end. And so I hope so. I hope you could come to some of these sessions in the next few days and see us build with it and see will it match that? Will it get there? It's still our first version of this kind of stuff. So I think it's headed that way, hopefully.
Next few questions, I'll try to go fast. It's not just a matter too of like not exposing all functionality on the front end. You actually need whatever functionality to actually be suppressed or kind of turned off via governance, right? Because it would be a danger to not expose some capability when someone could just go to Etherscan and still directly interact with that capability, right?
Most definitely, and that's kind of why we have built this admin tool as a spot where you can go and see a lot of what's going on there. That is a bit of a scary thing, especially when you start thinking about how much power some of these new tools will have with like the shamans and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that is certainly needs to be consideration and part of why we built that admin app.
Mm-hmm. So next question.
That's another cool thing with that's another cool thing with the, like you said, I think the Ethereum and the kind of open data API is you may have one app that has a very specific use case, but there might be 35 other apps that are exposing everything else. And as a user, you can look at your data however you want. And you can link to that. Like if you want to build a very specific app and then say like, well, here's your admin interface. This is where this other stuff is happening. We have that built, and maybe others will build other versions. Maybe a version that looks more like nouns, or a version that looks like tally, or whatever. And really, these libraries right now they're built on top of the Moloch contracts, but it would be pretty easy because there's a lot of similarities between the Open Zeppelin governor contracts that Tally uses, the nouns contract that the nouns ecosystem uses. We could inject those kind of data layers underneath the UI layer too still. I think that's an interesting future for a new version, but.
Yeah, I was thinking it's almost like there's an outbound. Right now, there's an outbound where anyone, you not just decentralize your front end, but every single piece of it, anyone can kind of build on their own. But I wonder on the inbound, like you say, like, hey, you have your framework, here's your pieces, and then you can, if other people adopt this same pattern, someone can come and say, you know what, we're actually going to include a commenting system via a component built it's actually drawn on Lens protocol or something. And so you get this truly kind of, I don't know if any of you have used a DeFi saver, but it's just like a compilation of all these kind of DeFi tools in one interface. And so you get like a DeFi saver of DAOs where you just kind of bring in all these different things and maybe add capabilities for them to interact with each other, which is wild.
So exciting, right? I really love
you
kind of
spent
where Deacon was going too with like that's how we've envisioned these data delivery packages, is like being able to swap in a different basically subgraph and contracts and and whoever that data is shaped, it can pass in through the React context and in kind of similar ways, and so you'd have similar hooks and stuff that you could use to get at that data. But that really reflects how the contracts are written, right? Like the treasury is a safe. You could have a treasury that's a safe that you just use multi-sig governance on. Well, hey, you can go and upgrade that to a Moloch at some point, or you could switch that over to compound governance or something. So I really love how it is starting. The front end is starting to get better and better at reflecting that back end.
Last question. Are you guys, what's your thoughts on the whole place of the marketplace on this? That seems like a crazy promising thing because other people could adopt this pattern, but if you're kind of a first mover on the marketplace and kind of curating, even maybe vetting in some sense of like an endorsement that, we've looked at this and this is not pointing to a nefarious contract. Like, I wonder if the marketplace for DAO Legos sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff. Yeah, we've been thinking about and talking about. It's cool that you're like coming to those same conclusions. That's definitely, where our heads are for sure.
Yeah, this layer we've been saying like we're switched to a protocol now, right? And so that includes the contracts and kind of this open source code. And so we want to keep this open source and kind of public or common good kind of vibe to it. Have some kind of protocol level governance around that. And then hopefully, we get marketplaces. Hopefully there's 35 different marketplaces. So I think third-party groups coming in and building stuff using our protocol is really what we want. We want people to fork our front end, fit and add changes, add more data layers, let us merge those things back in and continue to build on that structure.
Do you know what might be a fun hack for next week is along those lines, OX Justice, is like maybe a super simple way for somebody to submit a new DAO app they built to like some curation DAO. So they submit this proposal saying, this is my new DAO notification app. Do you like it? The DAO then votes. And if that proposal goes through, it posts like hey, this is a verified or curated DAO app. And then those maybe get displayed on DAOhaus's website or something, because we can just pull all that data from the subgraphs and it'll automatically all happen just through DAO proposals. It'd be super fun. Step in that direction, maybe. Hey, while George's here, not to put you on the spot, but I was wondering if you had any little like teaser on some of the tech sessions you got coming up, because I plugged you a bunch. I'm going to put him on the spot here. He might not be ready.
Sorry, I was just kind of by the computer. But yeah, I believe we are working on a sort of like a sign-in contract and integrating with that. So it will award the user shares and everyone, like, you are able to get shares every day. Just by basically pushing a button. Something super simple that just shows how we interact with external contracts and how you can kind of allocate that to a new app. We'll be interacting also too with a shaman that Deacon has built, right, Deacon?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try to build it tomorrow. And we'll get something deployed. Basically a drip. Yeah, we were like, well, we only have a couple hours to demo
Yes,
all
there
of
you go.
our packages, right? And to build a shaman. So let's just pick something really simple and kind of engaging and fun. So it'll probably just be a big button on a page that says claim my daily reward or something. And we'll see if I don't fuck it up too bad on the contract side.
Okay, so tomorrow is build the shaman. Is it during this time?
Let me double check the calendar.
And then
No, during this time, I'm going to talk about the Moloch V2 architecture a little bit and an overview there. In the second tech session, we'll actually build a shaman.
cool. And then Thursday we'll kick into a little bit of Rad Dad with Jordan.
Rad Dad. Thing, did you? I missed the first half. Unfortunately, I was driving around. But did you get into like the static data, the Lego shape and stuff like that?
I didn't. I overviewed it and I showed it off a little. If there's anything you want to show, we still have 15 minutes. But I know you'll explain a lot more.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to mention just like with the ability of being able to like reduce things to static data. If people are looking to hack away at some sort of like marketplace implementation, maybe good way to go is like being able to pass that static transaction data through an iframe. So you could basically just embed whatever app you build inside of admin or something like that. Or inside of another app. You could have a standalone app and then one that also just passes that transaction data to the admin, and it'd be a good little way to basically add whatever application functionality you want to an existing DAOhaus interface.
Oh yeah, that's something we didn't really get into at all, is that the admin app kind of acts as an interpreter for these forms. So you can actually just, did you guys add that where you can just put a form in the link?
We played with it. It's not live yet, but yeah, like that's totally possible. So it's like a gigantic URL.
Yeah, like a base64 encoded URL that has a full form that's built up using this JSON schema that does a transaction and has all the form elements and the buttons. That could even be like an immutable thing that's stored on IPFS. And so there could be like a marketplace for that even. Like,
or curation tools, right?
Components, that have been vetted and used and trusted and.
Yeah, it'd be fun to be like, I manually built these proposals for my DAO that go do a token swap and I don't know, like do like 4 or 5 other things, and then you could just be like, I want to save this proposal for using later, or I want to push this up to the proposal marketplace. DAOs could vote and say, hey, I vetted this one, it's good, and then I could go, get that proposal from the marketplace and use it for my DAO.
Lots of cool potential and possibilities. We're hoping that people play with them. Well, we got 10 minutes left. One thing we didn't talk about the Gnosis the Safe app. that Santiago built. Later on today, Oren from Gnosis Guild will be talking about Zodiac. And so what our governance contract is it's actually a module. It's a Zodiac module. So it sits on top of a Gnosis safe. We thought separating the treasury layer and the governance layer was kind of a flexibility unlock, because there's a lot of different governance solutions, and there's a couple different smart treasury solutions. Safe obviously is the biggest one, but having just an interface there where they're kind of a separation of concerns means that you can swap things in and out as a DAO. So that means if you're using a Gnosis safe and you want to kind of boost the resiliency from a couple signers to 100 DAO members, you can add the ball contract and give everyone shares. You could also start a new ball with a current treasury and add on another safe, which is, so this external safe would be non-rage quittable, or which may make sense for a lot of DAOs as more of a public fund that isn't rage quittable. And you can have multiple kind of sandbox treasuries that way. If you do have a safe and it's like a 305, you can go to the safe apps and put in, I don't know the URL, but this is really kind of a proof of concept, but you can put it in and it'll give you a summoning interface to summon a DAO right on top of a safe. And so it's actually is a Zodiac module now, which means the safe and that separation of concerns, you can add other treasury kind of modules, other Zodiac modules, and start doing some interesting composition there. And on the governance layer, we have shamans, which is kind of the same idea as a module. You can add different layers of shamans. There's a separation of concerns there. A shaman can't touch your treasury. The module can't touch the governance. But you could have a shaman Zodiac module, which could do both, which opens up a whole nother crazy set of things you could do. But one of the interesting use cases that Oren will probably be talking about is the roles. It's called the roles guard. It's a Zodiac module, which allows signers on a safe to have very specific things they can do. So one of the interesting things with this pattern is you could have signers and a governance layer, right? Maybe the signers act as an escape hatch, or they're a delegated team that can move treasury funds around. The roles guard would allow the DAO to say, they can only interact with this kind of maybe a staking contract, where if that team's determined that there's a governance attack or some other thing that went wrong, they could eject the funds. Not all DAOs are going to want to have that. Some might, though. So just the different levels with having a little more modular contract framework, just like we have a modular front end, there's a lot of kind of interesting things you can do. I think we'll probably be in the Zodiac interface soon too, where you can add the ball contract, and we'll also have there's going to be a lot of experimentation happening with these different flexible options. I guess we could demo that, but it's not super important. And I don't know if in 8 minutes I could get it all set up, but yeah, so in the Gnosis safe, if you go to the apps page, you put in safe-summon, I think, .daohaus.club, you'll see the summoning interface, which allows you maybe to visualize what I'm talking about here with the separation of concerns. let's, if anyone has any questions.